Hi, it's Joel, Mark Witt, and Antonia Dodge. I just turned on this video and I realized I'm grumpy because I haven't eaten yet. So, being an ENFP that I am, I'm going to try to bring my emotions up and get less grumpy as I talk. I think just by talking and getting excited and smiling a lot, my emotions will change.
And knowing you have a full audience.
And knowing I have an audience.
Because you're a social subtype, so that helps.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are in the middle of working on some INTX Unleashed bonus content, some extra things we're adding to the program that's going to be re-released this coming week. And as we were looking through some of the stuff, we realized that so we did a survey, right, about INTs, or from INTs, and we asked them some of the challenges they have. And one of the challenges that came up for a lot of INTs, and I think a lot of people struggle with this. This isn't just INTs, but small talk. This idea of, what do I do in a situation with people that want to have small talk? I want to go into the deeper meanings of things. I want to have deeper connection or deeper conversation, big ideas, things like this, right? I have to deal with small talk in my life. I think Duncan needs to go out. He's like whining. And Tony's going to let Duncan out while I ramble on for a second here. Anyway, we were thinking about, as we're putting together some of the bonuses, some of the extra stuff that we're putting into the program to make it even more rounded out, we thought, we can put some of this into the program, but let's put this out into the world also to be helpful to people. This is a challenge because we think that a lot of people struggle with this idea of small talk in the community that we're involved with here at Personality Hacker.
Yeah, in the survey, it might have been one of the #1 things that was mentioned as a challenge for INTPs and INTJs is small talk. And like you said, Joel, I don't think anybody likes small talk. So it was when we were trying to figure out strategies that help people with their relationship to small talk. Because it's not like you're going to learn some like crazy new technique to talk about the weather that will make it so that it revolutionizes your ability to engage in small talk. It's more like you have to sort of shift your perspective on your relationship with small talk changes more than the technique. Although there is one technique that we're going to talk about that is a little bit helpful. But I think the two things that really come up for people with small talk is, #1, people don't like the idea of speaking in such a shallow way with each other.
Yeah.
They want to talk about things that are deeper and more meaningful. And what's interesting about small talk is one of the reasons why it's so powerful and we rely on it as humans is that it gives us these quick hits of connection. Like we as human beings all need to connect. And small talk, it gives us these like really fast, quick little bites of connection. And the reason why we don't like small talk, I think, in part, is because it's not a satisfying meal. It's like not an entire meal around connection. It's just like a little snack. And so you can't rely on small talk to be your human engagement, completely. You need it to, you need to really connect and engage with other human beings on a much deeper level in order to get a satisfying meal. But if we didn't have these regular snacks, we would probably feel even more disconnected from human beings than even some of us already do. So small talk gives us one of those bits of connection. But it also allows us to engage with each other and get sort of it allows us to read each other's energy and understand this concept of like interpersonal distance.
Duncan scratching at the door again is a dog. And like a dog is probably a good example of this, where two dogs will come into each other's sphere and they will like smell each other kind of at the head of themselves, and then they'll go around and like sniff each other's butts and kind of like have some trepidation, but they're trying to get a feel for the type of animal that they're against, right? The type of other animal they're in interaction with. And obviously we're not suggesting you sniff somebody's butt, other human's butt, but basically that's kind of what's going on energetically in a conversation with small talk, right?
Yeah, certainly not in this political climate. Don't sniff anybody's butt.
No.
So yeah, the thing about that whole butt sniffing thing is basically like dogs getting a read on each other energetically. Yeah. And going like when that has happened, then everything's usually okay. Like by the time they get to that point, like the tails are wagging and everything's fine. But in that initial moment, at least I know with my dog, like it can be tense for a second to know whether or not like the dog is like cool, right? Or the two dogs are going to be cool with each other. And small talk is not quite that intense, but it is a way to gauge our relationship to other people. Small talk is just like an initial maybe like a neutral territory in order to determine whether or not the other person, like, where do they fall in the relationship in our life? Are they friends? Are they acquaintance? Are they family? Like, we know that almost immediately when we engage with people in small talk. So one of the first things, I know when you do Facebook Lives, your arm gets so tired. I know, mine too. So when you're doing, yeah, go ahead.
Like
I'll just be lazy.
Like look down.
And I'll try to not make it so that
There we go. Look at that. It's like a holder and everything.
Yeah.
I'll try to block the light so it doesn't like come this shining halo.
That was synchronized
Down upon
chair
you.
pulling.
That's good.
Yeah, that was a beautiful thing. All right, so in the first part, which is people don't like small talk because they don't have a good relationship with it, when you change your perspective and recognize that it can actually give you quick little snacks of human connection, which is helpful. It's not complete, and don't think it's complete. And if you think it's complete, you're going to continue to hate it. But if you recognize that, yeah, it gives you like these little bite-sized nuggets throughout the day of human connection, that's a nice thing. And the second thing is recognizing that it actually provides a very important service. I also read in a psychological magazine that small talk gives us an opportunity to perspective shift and try to figure out what's going on with the other person. And so in that way, it's almost like a puzzle. It's almost like doing a crossword puzzle or Sudoku or something. It actually makes us smarter if we do small talk and try to get inside the motivations of the other person. The second reason why people hate small talk, so that's the first one. Our relationship with small talk is bad. And if you can shift perspectives a little bit and go, yeah, maybe this is an okay thing, and recognize its place in society, that makes it a little bit easier to swallow. The second thing that makes people hate small talk is they don't know what to say. Right? Like they're not sure what to say to the other person because just how many times can you talk about the weather without wanting to blow your brains out? So there's a technique online that I've seen in multiple incarnations. In fact, somebody just posted it in the Intuitive Awakening community, which is called the FORM technique. And FORM is an acronym that stands for family, friends, occupation, recreation, and motivation, or money is another way to think of it. And if you can keep the acronym FORM in your head, then you just kind of go down the list. Everybody likes to talk about their family. So you start with, hey, so tell me about your family. Then you go to occupation. What kind of job do they have? And then allow them to sort of unpack that. Recreation is anything they're interested in. So you try to find common interests. And motivation is like, what is the thing that lights you up? Another variation is called FORD, where the D instead of M is motivation, but the D stands for dreams or desires.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about this piece is recognizing that small talk can actually be a broader category than you're realizing, because we all define small talk as like literally talking about the weather, right? But small talk is anytime you're engaging with somebody and you don't have a transaction, you don't have like a specific thing you're trying to drill down on. It's really just an interchange of information. And so we're doing a lot of small talk even when we don't realize we're doing it. And that small talk can be very satisfying. So instead of feeling like small talk is limited to things like talking about the weather and feeling forced to do that, what's nice about the FORM or the FORD technique is it reminds us that you can actually just jump into things like, what are people's dreams? Right? Like, what's their motivation and desire in life? And that's still considered small talk. So go to the thing that's the most interesting to you when you're engaging people in small talk, and recognize that that's still legit. That's still doing all the other things we were talking about, which is getting those quick hits of connection and gauging each other's, gauging our relationship with them. So what's nice about this technique is that it gives you permission to go to maybe a deeper place and still see it as small talk.
And there's ways probably to take each one of those from the FORM or FORD model and ask really interesting questions. So, for example, like either for occupation or recreation, one of the questions you could ask, instead of like, what do you like to do, or what do you do for work, you could say, what do you love? So there's probably ways to almost have like a little set of questions in your head where you can ask. This was something I ask all the time. Like, people, instead of saying, what do you do, when I go for occupation stuff, I say, hey, Bob, what do you love? Of course, I'm assuming the person's name is Bob when I say this. I don't just say that to everybody. Right? Your name, what do you love? And usually people are like, what do I love? I don't even know how to answer that. That's usually what most people say when you ask that question. And then they'll start to idea generate on some things that they might love, and be prepared, because they're going to probably ask you back what you love. And I've got caught there where I was like, oh crap, now I got to think myself. I didn't even think about the answer when I asked the question. So that's one thing when you're finding interesting questions to ask during small talk. Expect that question to be asked back to you, especially if the person doesn't know how to answer it. They're like, I don't know what I love. What do you love? And then they throw it back at you. So have a kind of have a preparation for that, because that can often catch you off guard if you don't have a plan for how to respond if they throw the same question back to you.
But that's already more interesting than talking about the weather,
Yeah,
or
of
the
course.
pollen count, or
Yeah.
whatever else it is that you're supposed to be talking about with small talk. So what's nice about this is that it expands the territory to get into areas that are far more interesting to you, and you're allowed to do that. You're totally allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So this irritation with small talk is a completely understandable thing, and at the same time, it doesn't have to be. You can shift your perspective on it and go into broader territories. You can figure out more interesting subjects for you that are still, considered small talk, and you can realize that it makes you smarter and it makes you more connected to humanity, and it helps you with your that managing of interpersonal distance and the idea of people's energies and who's safe and who's not, and how am I feeling about you before I rush into a relationship with you. I mean, like, you probably didn't walk up to your spouse and say, hey, I really like the cut of your jib. Do you want to get married? You probably walked up and started talking about like inane things, and then over time it developed. So recognize its place, make peace with it. It's kind of on you to do that, and then stop throwing softballs. Throw more interesting balls at the person when you're doing small talk. So
leave comments below of maybe how you've solved this, questions, comments, things that have come up for you, and how you've dealt with small talk in your life. And let's see if we can crowdsource some ideas here as a community. And then we have to get back to putting more INTX stuff together, because this is coming out in a couple days, and we want to make sure we've got a really good program for INTX. And there'll probably be a link somewhere around this video too if you're more interested in that as well. So, Joel Mark Witt and Tony Dodge, peace out. Thanks, guys.